Welcome to the future of payroll and workforce management insights by HR.com, your go-to resource for insights into payroll and workforce management. From navigating compliance and technology trends to exploring the latest in global payroll solutions, we're here to keep you ahead of the curve. Join us as we dive into the forces reshaping payroll and share practical strategies to optimize your workforce management. Let's get started. Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the latest episode of Future of Payroll and Workforce Management, a podcast here at HR.com, where I am your host. My name is Brent Skinner. I do all sorts of things here. I'd like to get to my guests. So, hello, Jayma. Welcome to the podcast.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for agreeing to do this. And now you are Jayma DuChene, and you are a senior product owner at OneDigital. And you do a lot of cool things around some of the well-known HCM software solutions around that are available to folks, lots of big names. And we're looking forward to learning a little bit more about what you do and also getting into our topic today, which is the rise of the HR technologist, why AI is forcing HR to level up and fast. Um, and before we get into that, because we have a lot to talk about, as I like to ask all my guests, what got you into your line of work? There's a lot of passion in this space, all the different nooks and crannies of the world of work and HCM, whether it's software, processes, or whatnot. What makes you tick? What really gets you going every day?
Well, in terms of what got me into this line of work, I started out as just an HR generalist and kind of really easily and quickly moved my way into an HRIS analyst, and I loved it. I've always been the type of person to love data and troubleshooting and trying to just figure things out. I'm very kinesthetic in my learning preference. So I kind of fell in love with understanding how to create different reports and enhancements with using HR technology. And I found over the years, especially over the last 10 to 15 years, just how rewarding it is to really help other people in the business make the most out of the HR tools that they're using. So,
Yeah, that's really awesome, and I know, and and that's really cool that you were able to figure out, the way that you learn and to really sort of dive deep into that. Um, let's get into this topic a little bit. You know, there's a lot of technology out there for HR people, right? And it's
mhm.
reaching sort of a tempest here, I guess you could say. We're at an inflection. I'm going to use the term inflection point, where HR really is a pivotal shift. They need to evolve or maybe fall behind, and it's really about embracing technology. You don't have to be a coder necessarily, but you have to understand the technology. And that's what we're really going to get into today. And I know we have a lot to talk about that with AI and everything. So, my first question for you is, what does it really mean to be an HR technologist today? Or just the term HR technologist, what does that mean? And how can HR professionals start thinking that way?
Yeah, I like that question. I think that honestly, today it means that you're operating at like an intersection of people, process, and platforms. And you're not just using HR tools, but really kind of designing how work is going to get done through them. And I think a lot of it is really like how you translate your business and employee needs into scalable workflows, clean data, smart governance, and measurable outcomes. So, in terms of like how to start thinking that way, I would say it's really a mindset shift going from like thinking about support to really thinking about a product mindset, if you will. I'm a senior product owner and that's all like what I do in terms of like trying to help the business think about how they get the most value out of the tools they're using and also doing it from a scalable mindset and a strategic mindset. So I think a lot of it is just kind of like taking that step back and shifting your mindset, as well as just trying to ask the right questions, right? So, some sample questions I would ask is like, where does this data originate from? Who approves this? And what triggers the next step? or how will we measure success, essentially? So I would just say overall, like embracing government also or governance as enablement is also a good key tool to keep in mind because you're not necessarily like using security roles and workflows as red tape. Essentially, you're just kind of helping make HR more scalable, essentially. So, and
Yeah.
I would say, like, lastly, I think an HR technologist isn't someone who, like, has every HRIS feature figured out, they're just trying to consistently have a people strategy, but, like, think more from the tech perspective.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really bringing the tech perspective into it so that you're not inadvertently leaving it out of the equation when you're thinking about your people strategy.
Yeah.
I like that, the 3 Ps: people, processes and platforms.
Yeah.
Um And helping folks get the most out of their technological, investments. I immediately thought of that maybe I could use someone like you to help me figure out how to use my smartphone, get the most out of my smartphone, because 'cause I'm one of these folks, "Oh, I'm just texting and using a couple apps and getting phone calls an old Gen X guy or whatever." But in any event, um, that's really interesting, and I think you really hit it on the head is, eh, you cannot you cannot formulate a people strategy today without thinking about the technology,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Yeah, yeah. Um, my next question for you is, so we're gonna talk about AI. Wow, no way. Um, how is AI, especially through prompting, so we're gonna get real specific, granular with this question. How is AI, especially through better prompting, changing the day-to-day work of HR and HRIS teams? I imagine it's just very, very, a huge impact.
Yeah, definitely. I agree on the huge impact because you're taking essentially what was something that is manual and turning it into more of like a guided strategy, essentially. And I would say that essentially what's changing day to day is, I mean, in terms of writing and editing things, your time has completely collapsed on having to do that manually. And like, so for instance, if you're having to do an employee communication, policy summary, interview guides, you can run that through AI and you've saved so much time, significant time, right? I think that also HRIS analysis gets faster. You can run any kind of project or any kind of idea that you want to accomplish through that, and then have more time to kind of like think about what's been given to you. Again, that guided decision making. And then I think like standardization improves as well. So if you're giving good prompts, you're creating repeatable outputs, and then everything is a little bit more consistent and standardized, essentially. And I'll kind of like end my answer in this, like I'm sure you've possibly heard the term junk in, junk out. Like whatever you
Yeah.
put into it is what you're going to get out of it, right? So I would just say like better prompting, you want to always provide like the role and the audience, your goal. You also want to include like more context as well as even say like ask me like or say like what are the risks of doing this or what have I missed? Make sure you ask those questions. I think that those will go a long way.
You're absolutely right about the specificity when it comes to prompting. It makes all the difference.
Mhm.
Um, that's where you can really guide the AI in the direction that you, want it to go. Yeah, garbage in, garbage out is always the one that I heard, and you're absolutely right, and it holds true because people sometimes forget in a weird way AI is a computer, right? It's a computer,
Yeah.
and, it's just like, like old school computer, and by that I mean maybe 5 years ago at this point, which is kinda funny to think. But just like it was with old school programs, it really depended on, the quality of the data that you're putting in. That's you have the processing speed, which is always, has always been, getting faster and faster, but that's just you don't wanna process something that's, nonsensical or doesn't make or is just, not worth anything, right? So you wanna make sure you're putting the right information in there. Could you give an example, share an example, sorry to put you on the spot, but maybe like an example of, say, like an HR analysis or something. You mentioned an analysis that
Mhm,
HR folks can do. Because one of the things I'm thinking is many in our audience probably are very new to using AI in their HR role, especially if they're at smaller companies. And they're like,
mhm.
okay, this sounds great. I can save all this time, but what do they mean? Like, what's an example of something I can do?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I'm going to answer you as a product owner.
Of course.
So essentially, well, and also I love the book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People by Stephen Covey. And I always love the habit begin with the end in mind. So if you begin with the end in mind, essentially like write out what are you trying to accomplish? What is the big goal here? And then break it down in incremental, sorry, processes and steps. So you have essentially, and I'm going to use some terminology that is agile related. So you have your epic, your big goal, and then you want to break that down into features of what you want to essentially accomplish within that big goal. And then within those features, you want to have acceptance criteria of what needs to be done in those user stories. So you can prompt AI with a Say you want to enhance your recruiting software and you want to integrate that and put that into a new CRM that you've already implemented and you want to automate it, you want to track your data, just put in that big end in mind goal, prompt it and ask it for features that um, should help with reporting and all of the milestones that you want to accomplish, and then you will be surprised at the output.
That's a great example. Thanks for sharing it, and I also like that book, and, that particular habit of and start with the end goal in mind, uh there's a lot of, similarities with, various, sort of, uh, thinking around, visualization of your best future and this kind of stuff, as well as imagining the outcome and working toward, like, imagine you've already reached the outcome, the end goal, and proceeding along those lines. So that's really, really interesting. I have another question for you, getting back, maybe out of the clouds back into the nitty gritty here. But for leaders, right, in HR, um, they might feel intimidated by technology, right? There's a lot to think about right now. It's kind of overwhelming. You're getting inundated. Even folks that are kind of on top of it, they're like, wow, AI is just, innovating and evolving so quickly. How am I supposed to keep up with this? Where should and can they start to become more HR leaders to become more effective partners with more effective in understanding the technology, and also maybe more effective in partnering with IT. And just to kind of put a little bit of a fine point on this, there is kind of a re-emergence of IT in this in the enterprise software sort of calculus right now, which is interesting to watch.
Mhm.
How can HR leaders sort of navigate this new situation?
Yeah. I think that they need to start small and start practical and start with a partnership in terms of collaborating and kind of, again, with that mindset shift of thinking, how can our processes become translatable, and you wanna also, like, learn the why behind everything, essentially. And I think something practical in mind would be to set up a cadence with your IT or, with anyone who would be a good partner to collaborate, maybe weekly, maybe biweekly, where you set up a 30-minute meeting where you just, brainstorm and talk about different ideas where you can kind of understand where you need to shift your mind, and then also how you can kind of take steps and strides in moving forward.
So shadowing IT in a way, partnering, sort of,
Yeah.
maybe kind of inserting yourself into IT's workflow or into their cadence of their day to really kind of figure this out. One thing that I've seen over the past few years, even before AI really started breaking through, is, and I don't know if it was anecdotal or if it was indicative of a trend, um, but it's happening, where there's a lot of IT folks are moving into sort of HR leadership roles in certain organizations. I interviewed a fellow, gosh, it must have been about 4 years ago now. He started his career very much squarely in IT, and, they happened to have I think it was, at the time, an Ultimate Software, which is now UKG, obviously, an Ultimate Software deployment, and, they just needed somebody to kind of helmet, to be at the top, just to help lead, uh, because of all the moving parts from a technological standpoint, and so he moved into a sort of an HR. I don't recall his actual title, but it had sort of a techie sound to it as well, but also an HR sound to it.
Mhm.
Do you see more of that happening in the future?
I do, especially as AI becomes more prevalent. I definitely think you'll have an advantage if you embrace it and learn how to um, just have a more intelligent mindset about the approach that you want to take with it. So yeah, I definitely think that it will become a lot more prevalent as the years go by.
Yeah, I do too. What in the time that we have left, this is just a question that came to me just now, and I'm just curious your take on it. I don't think there's really any right or wrong answer here, but um, smaller organizations that are just starting to figure out, there's always the small business out there that's finally figured out, gosh, okay, we need to stop doing HR stuff ad hoc, and we need to maybe, systematize it a little bit or get one person to do it. We'll hire
Mhm.
somebody who will head HR, maybe payroll too, or somebody else for that, right? And so we won't have these accidental payroll people or accidental HR people, which are kind of maybe the founders of the business, and they just did that because they had to. What kind of advice do you have for those organizations maybe to get it right from the get-go once they've reached that point where they're gonna make that move to get it right?
Oh, that's a great question because I do wanna just go back to begin with the end in mind. But
Right,
sometimes you
exactly.
don't know what the end is, right?
Yeah.
So, hmm, I feel like I would want to, spend a little more time thinking about that one because that is kind of a hard question, I feel like. Um, but I want to say that we're I love how the human element supersedes AI is understanding that you are not going to always get it right. You are not going to be able to predict the future. You are not going to be able to understand what, you know, crazy event might happen when you least expect it, right? So you can plan all that you want. And I think the most advantageous and most intelligent way to go about that is truly just trying to set yourself up and your team up for success by at least just having that strategic mindset of let's lay everything out and let's plan for scalability and let's begin with the end in mind. I think that's the best you can do.
I'm so glad you said that, to think about it strategically from the outset, because that's something that I've sort of the conclusion I've reached, over many, many, many conversations as a podcast host. Um, and just this idea that, there's a strong urge to just solve for HR from an operational standpoint, just to take care of all the must-dos and this kind of stuff, and then kinda forget about it. And to me, it seems like a really a rare, important opportunity for these organizations that have reached that point to, yes, you need to do that too, but to start thinking about it strategically from the very outset. And everything we've talked about in this episode, Jama, really, really fits into that, in my opinion.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for joining us for this episode of the podcast. This has been really helpful. Thank you so much, Jama.
Thank you. I really appreciate the conversation and the opportunity.
Thanks for tuning in to the Future of Workforce Management and Payroll Insights by HR.com. We hope today's episode brought you valuable insights and fresh perspectives on the future of payroll and workforce management. Be sure to check out more episodes and explore resources at hr.com/podcast or wherever you listen to podcasts. Until next time, keep innovating and making a difference in the world of payroll and workforce management.